Good morning, America. Evening, Asia. Hello, world. Welcome to the program. As I said, we've got the Friday feeling, but let's get cracking because more trouble at the top for the Korean giant responsible for so many of our best loved appliances and gadgets. Let's bring up the cube and take a look at the details. That's the company. The chief executive, in fact, of Samsung Electronics, Kwon of Samsung, has resigned following what he describes as an unprecedented crisis at the firm. Now, the wider Samsung group is still coming to terms with the loss of J.Y. Lee, that man right there. You may remember this back in August. The de facto head of the organisation was sentenced to 5 years in jail following his role in a political scandal, which also led to the impeachment of the South Korean president. But despite all those troubles, the money, ka-ching, Samsung makes continues going from strength to strength. And its share price, take a look at that share price. It is all uphill. It's more than doubled since the start of last year. Okay, let's get rid of the cube. I want to talk to Chris Roebuck, who is a familiar face, but the first time on Talking Business.
Indeed.
It's great to have you, Chris. Chris, of course, is a visiting professor of transformational leadership at the Cass Business School right here in London. Mm-hmm. Chris, despite this crisis, the exploding phones, management crisis, we seem to be buying more and more Samsung products because in the last 3 months, the company says it's going to make a profit of nearly $13 billion.
Absolutely, and this is the resignation I find really interesting because he has obviously worked out that whilst things are going okay now, whilst the figures are looking good, that does not necessarily predict that 2, 3, 4 years down the line, given fast-moving markets, that the organisation will still be in such a strong position. Normally, most corporate leaders leave it until it's too late and the financials start diving before they suddenly realise they should have changed. But he's been quite astute. He's saying, given the current world, given the need to be agile and disruptive, given the need that we're sort of fairly structured and bureaucratic, maybe we need younger entrepreneurial leaders that can take us forward.
Hang on, he's stepping down as CEO because he thinks it needs a younger man or woman in the job. So are you saying he's taking one for the team almost?
To some degree, I mean, there's interesting cultural elements here that much more in Asia than perhaps in the West, we get a position where people who are leading these organisations feel much more of a responsibility to the organisation than they do to themselves in many cases. Whereas perhaps in the Western world, many chief executives sometimes feel more responsibility to themselves than the organisation. So he's in a position where he's making the judgment, actually, given what's happened, given my personal circumstances, given where I see the world going in which we have to compete, we need to take a step back, we need to get in new leaders, and we need to potentially aim at perhaps a slightly different target.
But so, yes, okay, so this is looking forward, and obviously development of new products, there are young entrepreneurial leaders.
Absolutely.
But, at the moment, we're still the man, you can't see him, right behind you, J.Y. Lee, convicted of 5 years, the management crisis. I'm just trying to think, do we care as consumers? We're a fickle bunch, as long as the product is good, and it's there, and obviously people like Samsung products. But we still buy them.
Of course we still buy them, but that's why your comment about us being fickle, that's why he's having to take action. Because he's worked out that potentially what's going on is that Samsung is no longer as fast-moving as the market that it operates in. And to achieve the ability to be agile, to be disruptive, to meet the needs of an increasingly fast-moving market, you need a different generation of leaders, and you need leaders not just who are a reflection of the older generation, but you need young entrepreneurial leaders who get it.
Okay, well, let's hope they get the right one and start cleaning up that crisis. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thanks for popping your cherry on Talking Business. Have a great weekend. Chris Roebuck from the Cass Business School here in London. Hey, in a few hours' time, all eyes and ears will be on President Trump.